Splendid day, everyone. Welcome to our PCPD series of webinars. Today, I'm going to tackle about flexible learning, flipped classroom, blended learning. Specifically, I'd like to call my presentation as the 21st century flexible learning in the new normal. All right, are we ready? So, how are we coping with this COVID pandemic? It's been almost 3 months that we are experiencing this pandemic. And I'm happy that there are so many materials that we can use so that we can continuously grow professionally. All right, so without further ado, I'd like to proceed now with my presentation. According to Charles Darwin, it is not the strongest of species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is most adaptable to change. Do you believe so? So how do you calibrate yourself? How do you put yourself in this scenario, in this quotation of Charles Darwin? Are you the strongest species? Are you the most intelligent? Or are you the most adaptable to change? Personally, I'd go for the last, the most adaptable to change. So what do we expect from our students during this 21st century education? What do we want them to be? I'd like you to watch this video presentation. This is taken in NASA, California, last December 2017, when one of our students of the Philippine Science High School Eastern Visayas campus won the Breakthrough Junior Challenge, garnering about $400,000 worth for scholarship, school, laboratory, and a portion of that also went to the mentor. Let's watch this.
How many Albert Einsteins and Marie Curies have come and gone unknown because they lacked the ability to describe their own ideas? Sadly, the brightest spark will die if it does not catch. That's why we need not just great scientists, but great communicators who can tell nature's story in a way that grips us. In so doing, they expand their circles of enlightenment to encompass thousands. To introduce you to an incredible young science communicator, please welcome one of the founders of the Breakthrough Prize, Julia Milner, and Golden Globe nominee and author, Lily Collins.
In my advocacy for anti-bullying and self-empowerment causes, I have found that the biggest gift a child can be given is the opportunity to communicate. By having the chance to express themselves, kids not only discover who they are, they can change the entire culture.
We wanted to inspire the next generation with big ideas in math and science, and the people who really know how to talk to kids are kids themselves. That's why 3 years ago, together with Priscilla Chan and with support from Khan Academy, we established the Breakthrough Junior Challenge, a video competition for high school students. The winner this year is a remarkable science communicator.
Now is a very, very great time to live for science, since there are so many unknown questions around the world that need answers. Exactly what number is this? She says it's 6. She says it's 9. So who's right? In my video, one of the recurring themes is how I apply physics to real life. It makes people relate to the concepts on a much deeper level. The really mind-blowing idea here is that observers in different frames will perceive different versions of the same reality. And every observer's frame is equally valid.
Hillary has a really bright future. What makes her special is that she asks questions beyond our lesson. Sometimes she finds the answer by herself. She goes beyond.
I was 14 at the time, in 8th grade. We were really surprised when just suddenly the water came crashing down on our windows. Everything broke. We had to rush to the attic. The Pacific Ocean just crashed inside our house, and it filled the entire house within about 3 minutes or so.
After the typhoon, everything was gone. So we have to start from scratch. That was tough, having no school facilities at all.
It's a great honor for me to have a lab provided for the school. I get to help people tangibly through this lab, and it feels especially great since it aligns with one of my biggest advocacies to extend science education to others. Once we come to understand physics, we would start to get deeper and deeper into understanding the universe. That's one of the skills that I think would make a better society. People who can think deeper than what it is at face value.
And tonight, we have a surprise for Hillary. He just arrived to celebrate her achievement.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the director of Philippine Science High School, Reynaldo Garnace.
Splendid evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hillary, remember this song? To reach the unreachable star. Truly, you have imbibed in you the vision of the school, a passion for excellence, pursuit of truth, and service to the nation. I congratulate you and your family for this feat. We're all in this together. Your dream is now a reality. Let your star shine and be the best scientist and expert that you can be. Salamat po at magandang gabi.
For her short film, Relativity and the Equivalence of Reference Frames,
The winner of the 2017 Breakthrough Junior Challenge is Hillary Andales.
I've always looked up to two kinds of stars, those that shine at night, enchanting my mind about the universe, and those that shine before me now, these amazing scientists, inspiring me with their genius and tenacity to pursue the truth. I'm grateful that this award has allowed me to become a rising star with even bigger dreams. May this inspire more young people, especially my dear Filipinos, to look up and become scientists themselves, the stars that we all should look up to. Thank you to all those who supported me throughout this journey. Maraming salamat po.
Alright, so what can you say about that video? Can we give a round of applause to our representative from the Philippines for making our country proud, right? So it was a gathering of the elite, of the famous scientists all over the world, right? Okay, so after that awarding ceremony, Hillary represented the country in different parts of the world, being a science communicator, and there were also instances that I joined her. In one of her talks, what did she say in the conference? She said that, you know what, 90% of that experience, or in my day-to-day activities, I actually learned from YouTube and the internet. Ouch. So what is your take on that? So in other words, our students are learning more from the net rather from us as teachers, right? Okay, but you know, the consolation was, she said that, but 10% of that comes from teacher ignition. All right? So that gives us confidence and relief that, you know, we are the igniters of knowledge to our students, and that's good enough. If we're able to ignite that fire among our students, that means we have contributed something so that the students will continuously learn about the lessons that we want to teach them. We want to imbibe in them. So we expect our students to produce best outputs and be the stars that they can be. And that's what happened to Hillary. So my salute to the teachers of Philippine Science High School for igniting the fire and producing a star like Hillary Andales. So she's only one of the stars in Philippine Science High School, and there are so many of them now, because specifically in the campus where I served as a director for 6 years, we were able to produce world champion in robotics, informatics, research, and global Olympiads, and many, many more. So that is an indication what kind of education we are providing to our students. All right, so let's have a glimpse of our classrooms today versus our classrooms tomorrow. All right, or maybe our classrooms yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So how were you taught by your teachers? Can you recall? Were you taught like, okay, class, copy the board, where the teacher would write the text coming from the book to the board, and where the student would copy what is written from the board to the notebook? So I'm pretty sure you're familiar with that, and I hope that you're not doing that now. All right? And then what else? If students in math, for example, cannot answer the problem, cannot solve the problem, so the teacher would let the students stand until the period is over. Are you that kind of teacher? Or when the students do not bring assignments to the class, you let the students go out and come back when they're ready? Are we that kind of teachers? So from those practices that our teachers did before, what did we like? Or what did we dislike? What were our frustrations? Did we want to imitate them? Emulate what they did? Alright? So I remember one of my teachers in high school, a teacher of English, in fact, who had lots of expressions like, I should say, you have it there, that is now, so, no? Okay, so all these expressions, for example, and we kept on tallying them in our paper. All right, and that is one example. And later on also, he gave me a low grade because I was tallying his expressions and he got mad at me. Okay, and you know what? I got inspired to pursue English as my major field of study. Okay, well, that's only an example, but it had a good effect on my part. It had a good effect on my part. So I'd like you to assess yourself, no? How you were taught by your teachers, what you like, what you dislike, what were your frustrations, and then from among those experiences you have had with your teachers, how do they affect you now as a teacher? Which of those experiences are you doing? No? Are you using them to your students right now? All right, so we say that the learning before was more of a teacher-centric, right? So it's a teacher who was the lecturer on stage. So the role of the students was just to take notes of the notes given by the teacher. It's just lifting from the book to the board, to the board, to the notebook, all right? And every student is given the same learning experience, right? So we consider every student the same, no? So one size fits all. So the lesson that we bring to the class is the same for all. We do not consider the different learning styles, the multiple intelligences of our students. Every student goes through the same learning activities. We give the same learning activities because, you know, it's so tiring preparing different activities, different exercises for the students, right? So, again, one size fits all. But what is now? What is now? Now should be student-centric learning, right? So when we say student-centric, there should be social collaborative learning among our students. And this is where what I'm saying earlier, that there is a flipped learning, there is a blended learning, and there is personalized learning. So later on, I will discuss every detail of all these types of learnings now. So because we might be confused what is flipped, what is blended, what is personalized learning, what is flexible learning. But in my experience, actually, when I became a teacher in 1993 and started teaching, I considered myself to be the star, no? So always on stage, giving lectures and, you know, giving 10% participation among the students, right? And I think this is so tiring because I got to prepare a lot of materials every time, going to the class, preparing the lesson plans, preparing all the activities. And so I looked for a training on autonomy of learning. So student-centric is synonymous with autonomy of learning. So in other words, the lesson is based on a personalized learning, right? So the activity is based on the personalized learning. The goal is based on what the child wants to achieve and can achieve. So I searched for a training and I was able to stumble with a training in Japan. So I was actually looking for a training in Japan because my grandfather is a Japanese. So I wanted to trace my roots in Japan. So I got it. So I went to Japan because my dream was, the first country I'd like to visit was actually Japan. So, and there I discovered a lot about autonomy of learning. And I kept on exploring about student-centric activities, and I did it. When I moved from private school to the government school, handling the scholars, I just realized it's really very important to cater your lessons to the learners, and all the preparations actually were student-centric. That is very important. All right, in the 21st century schools, students work on complex, challenging tasks that require them to think deeply about subject matter, and they manage their own learning. So a part of that is they have to collaborate with peers, teachers, and experts on meaningful tasks using higher order thinking skills. So in fact, I also make it a point that I introduce the Bloom's taxonomy of learning to the students, because there are instances that I ask them to write questions and I ask them to use the higher order thinking skills. Okay? And recently we've been using technology to make decisions, solve problems, and create new ideas. And I believe that our students are more adept than us now in terms of using the technology. So these are the types of students that we have now. And we can go back to what was before, the traditional method, which is mostly teacher-centric. So there are 4 C's of the 21st century skills, but there are more than that later on. So the first is our aim. As the moment we go to the classroom, our first aim is to develop the critical thinking of our students, to help them develop their solving problem skills. That is very important, because on a day-to-day basis, our students face problems, and our role there is to help them solve those problems every step of the way. Simple problems, because nowadays our students don't know how to solve their problems. Like if they're lumped with a lot of requirements, this is where depression sinks in, because they don't know how to handle, they don't know how to solve the problems. So that means it should start at home, that we let the child decide to solve problems. I'll give you examples of that later on. And secondly, as a communicator, understanding and communicating the ideas. So after finding ways and means to solve problems, then it's part of understanding it, and then they should also be able to communicate to a peer or to a parent or to a mentor, so that they will be helped to judge if the decision is right or wrong. So that's why the third C is collaborator. So the learner should be able to collaborate with others and try to find out if the decisions that the person are making are correct, or something must be done about that. And then the fourth important C for the 21st century skills is being a creator. So that creator means producing high quality work. It's very important that a person will produce a high quality work. So from all those, solving the problem, understanding and communicating the idea, working with others, and producing high quality work, I'd like to give you a specific example of my son. It's good to share your own experience. When he was about 3 years old, we asked him what he wanted for his birthday, and he listed down some of what he wanted, and eventually he decided to have cards, Pokemon cards, Yu-Gi-Oh cards. All those cards were very popular before. And then when we went to the bookstore, then I asked him, all right, would you still want to buy the cards that you want from this bookstore, or you have other options? And then he said, can I stroll around and check if there are things that I can see here? I said, sure. All right, so I'll give you 10 minutes to explore and see what you really want to buy. All right, so after about 10 minutes, he came back to me, and he was bringing a thick book of Disney stories. And then he said, Pa, can I buy this book instead of the cards? I said, sure, if that is your decision. So think about that. Do you really want that? Give me 3 concrete reasons why you want that. And then he told me, because I want to listen to the stories. I want to look at the pictures because I love to see the pictures. And then there he said, I want to copy the drawings. All right. And so we bought the book, and there is a history now. So that was the start of our collaboration as father and son, because every time he would ask me to read a story before sleeping, and then we would do activities after reading the whole story. So it's a whole lot of fun, and I would say that that experience helped develop the 4 C's of my son, right? And same thing happened also to my 3 other daughters. So we duplicate similar experience now, trying to develop the 4 C's of our children. All right, so more of that may be coming in our sharing. All right, so other than that, in the 21st century skills, how today's students can stay competitive in a changing job market. No? So these are categorized into 3. One major category is the learning skills, which I shared earlier on critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication. So these are the basic C's, no, in learning. And the second for that is the literacy skills. So under literacy skill, we have information. So the vast of information that a child would get from reading, from surfing, then from the media and the technology being used by the child. So that's also very important. So all this literacy skills, information, media, and technology. And the next thing is life skills. Very important. So we can forego with learning skills and literacy skills. Yeah, but they are foundations. But most important also are the life skills. Number 1 is flexibility. Is the child flexible given the different situations? How does the child handle such situation? And then another thing is leadership. Along with leadership, of course, is membership. So because a leader should also be a good member, should be a good follower. And then another thing is initiative. Very important that the child is able to initiate something out of nothing. Being resourceful. And at the end of the day, being productive also in what the child does. Right? And then another important factor is social skills. So that a child should be able to deal with the people around him. So I'd like to proceed with the second level of experience I have had with my son. Putting all these together, the learning skills, the literacy skills, and the life skills. When my son reached grade 7, I noticed that he started to be hooked to gaming. Right? And I would see him playing Dota then, LOL, League of Legends, and I think Mobile Legends also, and other games. And then I asked him, son, is it okay that you are spending much time in your games? So he would tell me, don't worry about me. I will make sure that I am doing well in my academics. So if I would make it in the director's list, then you should be worried. So every time, actually, every quarter he was at the director's list. So, I could not forcefully stop him because he was doing well academically. And then he would also send me literatures about gaming. And I would read all those literatures and I would realize that, oh, he's actually right. Gaming can help develop the different skills of the students, like solving problems, collaboration also, because he would be playing with a lot of people all over the world. And then it would also develop his communication skills, right? Comprehension, critical thinking. So all these skills I saw were slowly developing as he progressed in years until he reached grades 8, 9, and 10. And then one time he said, Pa, I'd like to ask permission. I'll be going to Manila to attend the arena, to go to the arena for the stage competition. I said, wow, that's already a level up. And so later on, he also said that I'm applying for an online job as a writer. So, and he became a writer, and now he's already an associate editor of esports in Inquirer. So you see, so all these skills were developed because of the experiences that he went through since he was young, no? And it was a combination of the experiences he had with his parents and with his teachers in the school. All right, moving on. So, in the 21st century teacher and learner of the Department of Education, so the K-12 classifications of the 21st century skills, no? So we look into the holistic development of the child, no? And we look into these areas. Number one is the life and career skills of the students that we need to develop, the effective communication skills, which is very important, information, media, and technology skills, and then the learning and innovation skills of our students. So at the end of the day, the holistic development of the child is geared towards what? Maybe pursuing higher education, or maybe going to middle level skills development, or maybe going to entrepreneurship or employment. This is actually the basic objective of offering the K-12 program, because we aim that when the child reaches grade 12 or finishes grade 12, those 4 options are possible for the child. So I'd like to share with you my experience in the Bahamas, in the Caribbean island, when I work as a teacher in science. You know, the program of the school is in the senior high, the kids had options to go to STEM, teacher education as an option, office procedures, no? So these are 3 examples of strands, no? And our lessons are geared towards preparing them for higher education. Is it middle level skills development? Is it entrepreneurship or employment? And you know what? I was amazed to see that after finishing grade 12, I would see my students working already as teacher aide, bankers, or working in offices, and some of them are pursuing higher education, no? If they want to pursue medical related courses, for example, or if they want to become full-fledged teachers. So even before, that was sometime in 2010, when K-12 was not offered here, I had already an exposure to the K-12 program abroad, and I saw the importance of offering such K-12 program, because after finishing senior high school, then they are already employable. Let us try to reflect in our system if this is really happening. So it's for you to give comments. Maybe later on I'll ask you to give reflections about that. So how is it going? But anyway, this is a new program for us. We are trying our best to implement and rectify whatever there is that we need to do. Okay, so in the curriculum exits, as I said, we aim to holistically develop the Filipino learner aimed with the 21st century skills. So wrapping up, again, what are those? We have information, media, and technology skills, learning and innovation skills, communication skills, life and career skills, higher education, employment, entrepreneurship, middle level skills development. So that's our aim of producing a senior high school graduate, no? Okay, so I think we are done with this. So under information media and technology skills, we have the visual and information literacies, we have the media literacy, basic scientific, economic, and technological literacies, and multicultural literacy, and global awareness. No? So our world becomes smaller because of technology. And notice maybe that we have an increasing number of honor students, no? Like almost everyone in the class is an honor student because maybe of accessibility, because of it's a small world. Everything can be seen, can be learned through the internet. Then the learning and innovation skills, we have creativity and curiosity, critical thinking, and problem-solving skills. And of course, one of that also is, the risk-taking skills. And in terms of communication skills, there should be a collaboration and interpersonal skills among our learners. And again, wrapping up on life and career skills, we aim our students to be flexible and adaptable. They should have initiative and self-direction. They have social and cross-cultural skills. They are productive and accountable of what they do. They develop that leadership and responsibility. And to top all that, they have ethical, moral, and spiritual values. So that's very important. That's why there is a value statement when we prepare our lesson plan, because it's a very important component that we need to see. All right, so we'll just browse through the slides, but this is just a wrap up of what we covered earlier on learning and innovation skills, on info, media, and technology skills, then on life and career skills. Okay, so we have the schema on the characteristics of a 21st century learner, no? So one is the Knowledge Network for Innovation in Learning and Teaching by NILT. The other one is by Falfrey and Gasser. They are similar. So we've said so much about the NILT, no? And I'd like to focus on the Falfrey and Gasser. The 21st century learner, no? So be activists, create identities, maintain dossiers, be creators, promote information quality, navigate information overload, manage media violence, be innovators, and be learners. So these are the characteristics of our students. So let us try to ponder, are we developing all these characteristics of our learners? As teachers, for example, as mentors, do we also have these characteristics? Are we at the same footing with our students? And that's very important, no? That all of us are rowing the boat at the same direction, right? So we are the captains, but the relationship now in the teaching learning process is not a pitcher to cup relationship, but it's more of, pitcher to pitcher or cup to cup relationship, where there is sharing of learnings, no, from teachers to students. Okay, so let's just browse through the levels of Bloom's taxonomy of learning. So we have here from the LOTS, or lower order thinking skills, we have remembering. All right, retrieving, recalling, or recognizing knowledge from memory, when learners use memory to produce definitions, facts, or lists, or to recite or retrieve materials. All right, so you try to recall, what have you been doing as a teacher in terms of lesson, content presentation to our students, and in terms of assessment? Try to examine the tests that you have made. No? Is it on a remembering level, or is it going up to understanding level? So when we say understanding, constructing meaning from different types of functions, be they written or graphic. So, when I was a dean of the College of Education and Liberal Arts, I would look into the test questions of the teachers, and I would always correct them if there is something wrong with the exams that they do. All right. Now I'd like to have just a refresher on the Bloom's taxonomy of learning. As educators, how do we deliver the content of the lesson to our students, and how do we assess them? No? So when I was a dean of College of Education and Liberal Arts, I would review the tests made by the professors, by the instructors. And I noticed that majority of the teachers usually do not consider the higher order thinking skills when making questions. I guess you can attest to that. So even, for example, in the national examinations that we take, there are many items which fall under the lower order thinking skills. There are lots, no? So from remembering level, remembering covers retrieving, recalling, or recognizing knowledge from memory. When learners use memory to produce definitions, facts, or lists, or to recite or retrieve material. So when we simply ask what, when, where, who, so that's only on remembering level, no? And we have to go further to understanding, because understanding means constructing meaning from different types of functions, be they written or graphic. So in our delivery of content and assessment, for example, so we have to make sure that we go to the higher level on understanding, because that's already answering the questions why and how. Okay, what should be done? Okay, then that goes to applying level. So applying means carrying out or using a procedure through executing or implementing. So it relates and refers to situations in which students use learned material through products such as models, presentation, interviews, and simulations. So when we let our students do something, we have to level up to higher order thinking skills, no? So after applying, then goes analyzing. So in analyzing is very important because it's breaking material or concepts into different parts, no? Determining now they relate or interrelate to one another or to an overall structure or purpose. So it's a way of developing the analysis, the critical thinking of our students if we go to that level up to evaluating. So when we speak of evaluating, we mean making judgment based on criteria and standards through checking and critiquing. So there are certain outputs that we need to give them so that they're able to analyze, apply, and evaluate closely the material that we are giving them. And the highest order is creating. So after all those levels, then the highest level will be putting the elements together to form coherent or functional whole. So reorganizing elements into a new pattern or structure through generating, planning, or producing an output, no, out of a certain topic or lesson that we have given them. So let us try to recall how we deliver a content of a lesson and how we assess our learners based on the content of the lesson that we have delivered. So are they able to answer the 5 W's and 1 H, no? And are they able to go through also the process, no, in our lesson planning, no? We have the affective domain, the cognitive domain, and the psychomotor domain. And also another consideration is we have to look into the pillars of education, no? So at the first level, learn to know. So we can summarize the Bloom's taxonomy into the pillars of education. Learning to know, learning to do, learning to live, and learning to be, right? So that's very important that we have to consider all this in our presentation of the lesson and in our assessment. Okay. So I'd like to show you that picture of a 21st century kid. So familiar? Are there kids hanging around in the campus looking like that, bringing guitar, wearing glasses, and so on and so forth? So this is the doodle of our aim for 21st century education, no? That students should create, adapt. So there is information literacy, there is communication, there is collaboration, self-directed productivity, problem solving, and so on and so forth. So all these words in the doodle are very important in the development of the 21st century learner. All right, so if we have explored much about the 21st century learner, then let's look into the 21st century teacher. So the 21st century teacher should be, number one, adapter. So the teacher is able to adapt to the curriculum and the requirements to teach to the curriculum in very imaginative ways, no? So that means the teacher should really be creative of what is best and what would suit to the learner. So the software and hardware design for a business model into tools utilizable by a variety of aged groups and abilities to a dynamic teaching experience. So that means everyone should be active, participative in the discussion. And the teaching style also should be inclusive of different modes of learning. So no one is left behind, no? So there are students who prefer writing, let it be. Who prefer talking, let it be. Who prefer sketching, let it be. So the modes of learning should cater to all those types of learners that we have. The second characteristic of a 21st century teacher is being a communicator. So that means you must be fluent in tools and technologies that enable communication and collaboration anytime, anywhere. So you do not only know how to communicate, but you also know how to facilitate, stimulate, control, moderate, and manage communication in the classroom. That is very important because sometimes, kids are overpowering in the class and they take the whole discussion. So your role as a teacher there is to facilitate, to moderate, so that everyone is given an opportunity to talk and share. So another characteristic is to be the learner yourself, to be lifelong learners. That's very important. So because we keep on learning and learning and learning and relearning, then you continue to absorb experiences and knowledge. Yes, so through readings, through sharings, and then, but endeavor to stay current. So what is now? Do not dwell on what your experiences were in the past, and do not procrastinate so much on what's going to happen in the future. But, stay on what is current, what are the needs of our learners, and change and learn as the horizons and landscape. So as we say, there is nothing in this world, there's nothing permanent in this world but change. So we always have to adapt to the changes, as Charles Darwin said. So the 21st century teacher also is a visionary. You must have a rich imagination to see the potential in, grasp and manipulate the emerging tools and in web technologies. Look at others' ideas and envisage how they would use these in their class, and then look across the disciplines and through the curricula and make links that reinforce and value learning in other areas. So there should be a collaboration of all this. It's very important. It's not a standalone subject, but it's there is a reinforcement of other subject areas. Make other fields as leverage to reinforce their own teaching and learning of their students. So always have a link of what's the purpose of teaching math, for example. So what is the science behind that? So what is the language behind, and what values we can get out of that lesson. So it's very important that there is a linkage of what they're learning, because at the end of the day, the child would ask himself or herself that, what is this for? Why do I have to learn this? Can I apply this for real life? So we should give the relationship. We should let them see the relationship. And as a teacher should also be a leader. You lead by example, by championing processes and modeling skills. So in other words, you have to walk the talk, because our children follow what we say. In fact, we are more influential than the parents. The kids normally say, because that's what our teacher said. So they do not follow their parents, but they follow their teachers. So that means you should be an advocator, adapter, no? You set clear goals and objectives crucial to the success of a certain project. So that's why you have to be involved in the creation of objectives, because if they don't have ownership of what they do, then it seems meaningless to them. So they feel not doing it because there is no value of what they do. So that's very important that we should show them the value. All right, then the modeling. As an educator, you should also be a model. The behaviors they expect from their students. So tolerance, acceptance, a wider view than just their curricular areas, global awareness and reflection. So what do you do as a teacher? Because they emulate, no? You emulate the characteristics. Then, do you have reflective practice by monitoring and evaluating your teaching blogs, Twitter, and other medium where educators can look both inwards and outwards? So, in other words, you have to explore things as the students are also explorers, and that's very important. Yes, and the another characteristic also is a collaborator. A leverage collaborator tools like LinkedIn, Ning, Blogger, Wikispaces, Bebo, MSN, MySpace, Lightyear, Pinterest, Instagram, and Facebook to enhance and captivate our learners. It's very important that our students are exposed to all these applications, software. So we have to be abreast of what they know also. And then share or contribute, adapt, and invent using these collaborative tools. No? So we should not be afraid to ask questions if we do not know. So we ask our students to teach us. And another is, as an educator, you should be a risk taker. You should have a vision of what you want and what the technology can achieve to be able to identify goals and facilitate learning. So, and don't be afraid to take risks. Sometimes surrender to students' knowledge and use the strengths of these digital natives to understand and navigate products, and have students teach each other. That's very important. So I have said we don't have the monopoly of knowledge, so we need our students to teach us also. All right. So what must the 21st century teachers do to develop the critical thinking of the students? So I would just like to highlight those areas there in the brain. No, the teacher should be open-minded, engage the students in problem solving, collaborate with others, analyze, reason, and evaluate. We have to reflect on learning, make real world applications of things, and then think critically and creatively and communicate clearly and accurately. So that is our aim of the 21st century teachers and learners. No? So there should be commitment, competence, creativity, and compassion. And above all, very important is both learners and teachers should have the right character. Alright, so I will just skip some of these slides because we already have tackled this on the ideal learning environment. So that's it. Okay. So, wrapping up, on the 21st century learning versus 21st century learning, we say that in the 21st century learning, it's more of learning the content, no? But in the 21st century learning the tools and skills to remake the content and to become the producer and creator. That's very important. So, the greatest sign of a success for a teacher is to be able to say, the children are now working as if I did not exist. Yeah, that's very important. So now we move on to the open forum and workshop. So I'm giving you ample time to look into the challenges during the COVID pandemic time. And then the second is share your breakthroughs in the application of 21st century skills in teaching. So I'd like you to raise your questions maybe in the chat board, or you can email me. The PCPD staff will facilitate on your questions, and we will have time to answer these questions. So we will pause for a break as you answer to this. All right? Thank you. Okay, so we're back. Thank you so much for your responses to our forum and mini workshop earlier about what are your challenges during this COVID pandemic time, and then sharing your breakthroughs in the application of 21st century skills in teaching. Well, personally, yes, there are a lot of challenges that we go through. Number one is really internet connectivity. And this poses a challenge, especially for those who are living in the remote areas, and it's quite difficult. So I attended once a webinar with Simeo, and then I asked them if there have been initiatives about, the connection between the government and the providers of learning management systems and the internet providers as well. So I was even suggesting that it would be good if in every local government unit there is a learning hub that will be established, so that the local government unit can welcome students, maybe just one room there, and then there is a connection of the DICT or any providers like BLDT, Smart, Globe, whatever. So there will be provision of computers and strong connection. So in other words, students coming from remote areas, from the barangays, will go to the municipality and avail themselves of the services of the learning hub in the municipality. So I guess that's a very good solution to this challenge. So and the breakthroughs maybe is our ability now to learn many things about flexible learning, blended education, flipped learning, through the internet. So there are many webinars coming every now and then, and we can maximize the use of them and then see what we can apply in our teaching learning processes, as we go back maybe to our discussions, our classroom, maybe online or offline. So these are very helpful. So I hope we can have time to process all your sharing. All right, so then we proceed now. So what now during this pandemic time? So many of us will be embarking into flexible learning, flexible learning. So you see the words there in the doodle about flexible learning. So like innovative, it's a choice, it's responsive to what the needs are. So adaptable, it's personalized, it's transferable, it's student-centered, and so on and so forth. So all those words fall under flexible learning. So according to Microsoft Executive Circle, so when we speak of flexible learning from the ANTA in 2001, so we say that it expands choice in what, when, where, and how people learn. So it supports different styles of learning, including e-learning. So take note, different types, different styles of learning. So anything can go into flexible learning, and that includes e-learning. So in other words, e-learning is only one. So education has come a long way in exploring technology for business benefits. However, there is so much to achieve until now. So everything that we can do to deliver the lessons to our students falls under flexible learning. So if we look at the flexible learning, so we look at the institutional agility, the personal flexibility, the balance, pragmatism, and the learner choice. So again, we ask these questions: what do we want to learn? How do they want to learn? Where are they going to learn? Is it at home? Is it a physical presence in the classroom? And then when are they going to learn? So are they ready to learn the lesson? So All right. And again, in the bigger circle, we look into what are the capabilities of the institutions in terms of systems and structures. And then in terms of personal flexibility, how ready is the individual in terms of technology-enhanced learning? Okay. So in other words, we have to capacitate also the learner about technology readiness. And then under the balanced pragmatism, what are the pedagogical approaches that would fit the learning style, no, of the student? And then based on the choice of the learner, where is it geared towards in terms of employment? So why are we focusing on this? For what purpose? No, is that all right? So I don't have to elaborate further on what is outside of the big circle, no. But basically on institutional systems and structures, no. So what is the intensity of study needed? The credit systems of what is being learned, and then the procedures of the administration, the recruitment and retention. So in terms of technology enhanced learning, so the digital literacies, the mobile learning, the learning spaces, and learning analytics, no? And in terms of pedagogical approaches, we look into the student transitions, independent and collaborative learning, inclusive and lifelong learning, and personal learning, okay? Then for employment, the employability level of the learners, the work-related learning, flexible working, and then, of course, very important is globalization. So that's the big circle of flexible learning. So it starts with what are we going to deliver, how are we going to deliver, when are we going to do it, and where are we going to do it. So, and that's the greatest achievement. So there is a need to plan the unit on flexible learning. So number one that is to be done is to plan and schedule for resource creation. So there are many systems in the university to assist you create resources, no? Priority is given to higher order, reusable resources rather than one-off instances of presentation and information delivery. So it's very important for the educator to plan and schedule the resource creation. So creation of the resources to be used on flexible learning, and then factor in your own learning. So what is your own learning, no? So the professional development, training workshops, personal technology skills and proficiencies all take time and need to be considered when you start developing a unit for online study. So as we say, we cannot give what we don't have. So whatever we have, we capitalize on that. But what else do we need? Then we have to hone professionally. Okay? So factor in your own learning. Then limit creation of text-based and purely presentational items. So think about ways to create materials that drive higher order thinking engagement. Presentations and text have a place, and where possible, this should be created once and redeployed as required, no? So we have to be reflective, imaginative, and creative. So what can we do? And from this, what can we deliver? And how would this be taken in by the learners, no? And then, if it is needed, use iLecture when you can. So it's a multi-purpose system. So you can record face-to-face lecture, you can record desktop captures, you can create podcasts, narrated slideshows, and vodcasts to be delivered via the iLecture infrastructure. So as what Howard Reingold says, lectures are about explaining concepts that are so poorly written about, they need to be explained. So short, sharp, and engaging are the key to creating multimedia resources. So yeah, at this point in time, iLecture is very important. So when you can, then reuse existing resources. Find ways to implement the use of existing resources, both those created by you and those from third parties. So in other words, you can send links of sites like YouTube, SlideShare, Flip TV, and others that can be used to great effect. No? Or if you have developed your own, then you can send that to Google Link, no? And then send the link to even Messenger, that can be possible. So remember that web links, online journals, libraries, and other sources are all part of your toolkit. All right. So encourage students to learn to use these to develop their own learning. Teach scholarship as much as a content. So it's very important that we make use of everything. No? Then another is ebooks. Electronic texts are available in many subject areas and can often cut through issues of access, especially when students are in remote locations or overseas. So if it's hard to use hard copies of the books, then we can use ebooks. No? There's a need to use tab or laptop to use the ebook. So this is how we develop our resources at this, education during the coronavirus, because school is out. So that's why we have to employ flexible learning. So educational responses to the crisis are capable of changing the meanings, purposes, and values of school, according to Keith Holmes of UNESCO Futures of Education Ideas Lab. No? So with this, we change the meanings, the purposes, and values of school, and the school is just anywhere. It's not in the four walls already of the classroom, but just anywhere. So during this pandemic, I'd like to give you a view about study. Roughly half of the adults say that the internet has been essential to them during the coronavirus outbreak. So from the responses, 53% considered that it's essential. 34% of them considered important but not really essential. 10% not too important, and 3% not at all important. So in other words, that's 80% of them is saying that the internet has been essential in the learning process. But majorities do not think it is the government's responsibility to ensure connectivity for all. Yes, that's what I'm saying. But there have been collaborations with the national government agencies like the ICT or DUST that there is a need to capacitate, for example, the local government units and other agencies of the government so that there is accessibility to the internet. So some say that yes, the government has the responsibility, 37%, but 62% say that they don't have responsibility. And in cell phone services as well, 34% say the government does not have responsibility, but the government has 65% has responsibility. So for you, do you think the government should be responsible for our high-speed internet connection at home and cell phone services? I guess there should only be a collaboration between the government and the private providers, right? Okay. So, based on the COVID-19 and children rapid research response agenda, so the evidence synthesis says that estimating the impact of COVID on violence, prevalence, and child protection. No? So, rapid research review of pandemics and child protection. It shows there that these are the agenda that we need to look into. Number one is child protection. Number two is education. Number three is social protection. Then child well-being and children online. That's very important that we have to. Okay, so these are the agenda that we consider at this time. So the ethics considerations for COVID-19 evidence generation involving children, ethical issues in the use of digital technology for contact tracing and surveillance. Okay. Okay, so we have to proceed now with the definition of flipped learning and definition of blended learning. Okay, when we speak of flipped learning, it's a pedagogical approach in which direct instruction moves from the group learning space to the individual learning space, and the resulting group is transformed into dynamic, interactive learning environment where the educator guides students as they apply concepts and engage creativity in subject matter. So, do you see the point? So, it's a pedagogical approach, no? Where the group learning spaces to the individual learning space. So in other words, as a mentor, you give the task to a group, and then the individuals now can look at what particular topic or learning he or she can develop out of the given tasks, and then they will have dynamic and interactive discussion in a learning environment. And then the role now of the teacher is just to guide them, to facilitate if they apply the concepts and engage creatively in the subject matter. So in other words, it's really a personalized learning and a collaborative learning in a group, no? So that's flipped. So in other words, flipped is an opposite of traditional. So when the teacher takes care of everything 90%, and then the students will only take care of 10%. So that's the traditional. And then when we say flip, the teacher just breaks something to them, and 90% of the task is being done by the students. So that's why we call it flip. No? And then for the blended learning, it's an approach to course design that brings together the best of both face-to-face and online strategies. So this combination aims to build from each approach to create an innovative and effective learning experience of the students. So the focus here of blended learning this time is face-to-face learning. So there's a face-to-face, and then there is an online collaborative learning, okay? And then there is a self-paced learning. So it's like a three-pronged method, no, that they overlap, no? So there's a face-to-face interaction of the learners, or there can be an online collaboration of the learners and the teachers, and then there's a self-paced learning as well, no? So now, do you see the picture now of what is flexible learning? So it's like the flexible is the overarching program, no? It's flexible learning, and then under flexible learning we can have flipped learning and blended learning. All right, so as a recap of what I said earlier, flip is an exact opposite of the traditional. So when you say flip, teacher instructs lesson at home, no? So by video, podcast, book, website, and then the students work in class. So the teacher, but you know, this can also be like at home or in school, no? Students work in class, deeper understanding of concepts, applications, and corrections to content are made. Then students receive support as needed. Whereas the traditional, the teacher instructs, the students take notes, students follow guided instruction, teachers give assessment, then students have homework. So that's the traditional. So flipped is like the teacher may be anywhere and just give class to the students what to do, and then the students will do something out of that, and then report to the teacher, submit what has been done, and then the role now of the teacher is to peruse if the objectives are met, no? And then give more inputs if needed. Yeah. So on flipped teaching and learning, it's also a form of a blended learning, yes, and then there is more student-teacher interaction, and then the teacher makes use of digital learning materials, and then after that, when the students will have delivered the task to the teacher, then it's the time of the teacher, the role of the teacher now to review and reinforce from what has been submitted by the students. Okay, so what are the advantages of flipped classroom? So number one is students really take ownership for learning because they go through the whole process of researching, figuring out, asking questions, no? Taking down important notes. So they have ownership of learning. Number two is it promotes student-centered learning and collaboration, because that's why it's a personalized learning, and they need to collaborate with other peers to learn something. Then lessons content are more accessible because they can just search on hard copies maybe, or they can go to the net and research important ideas, and then it emphasizes on cooperative learning. So yeah, there is cooperation of the peers. It gives more time to explore the content, because that's why it's when and where. So it's up to the students when and where to get the information. And of course, it can be more efficient because the student should be selective and should discriminate what particular information is needed for a certain topic. So what are the advantages of flipped learning? So I just said earlier, so makes learning central rather than teaching. So it's the learning which is central, the most important point there. It promotes peer interaction and collaboration skills. It encourages higher student engagement. It fosters independent learning and provides increased individualized attention, because as a mentor, based on the tasks submitted to you, then you're able to find out that these are the things that the child needs more. So different from the others. So although you may have a group call, for example, or a group chat, but you will see the different reactions of the learners, then later on you can have also a one-on-one communication with the learners based on the needs of the learners. All right, so wrapping up on the pillars of flipped learning, number one is there is a very flexible environment, no? So we have to consider again the what, the who, the when, the where, and then the learning culture is also considered, and then what is the intentional content that we look into, and then the professional educators, what is the capacity of the teacher, what else to be acquired, no? So to be abreast with the learners. Okay, so in the flipped classroom, we set goals. So we look into before the students prepare to participate in class activities, no? And then during, the students practice applying key concepts with feedback. All right, and then after, the students check their understanding and extend their learning. All right, so in other words, before the student goes to the class, he or she is already armed of the lesson, no? And then just validating now in the class if what has been learned are correct. So through collaboration, so and getting feedback, and then there is an extension. After that, there is an extension of learning, because what you missed, what you need to relearn, and what are the inputs of your peers and your teacher may be calibrated, no, and revalidated after. So that is in class and out of class, no? Out of class. So on the other hand, of blended learning, they're just basically the same, because it routes into the different balloons, no? Like there is a virtual learning platform, there is an inquiry-based learning, there is an integration of technology, there is global connections, there is game-based learning, there can be direct instruction, peer-to-peer coaching, and very important also is focusing on mastery. All right. So blended learning, based on studies, blended learning allows students to work at their own pace and at their own level. So 90% of teachers say blended learning increases students' engagement and improves academic performance. This is a very good study. It's from study.com Classrooms and Teachers Initiative, no? And then 72% of them say that teachers use blended learning in their lessons, actually. Then 80% of teachers say blended learning saves them time and energy. Yes, because, you know, it's more student-centered, so you don't have to worry about preparing much, because you are armed with the materials, and then the students are the ones looking also for the resources for the materials. So many of my students are not proficient in reading, which means I can best teach them math through games on the internet or computer programs rather than difficult word problems, according to Daniel who is a math and science teacher. All right. So if we look at the matrix, no? So when we speak of blended learning, it's synchronous physical formats. Going to flipped classroom, it's in-class activities, it's student-centered, interactive classroom activities, and it's only teacher-aided. So the effectivity is comparison with traditional learning. And for another portion there in blended learning is it's self-paced and asynchronous formats. All right. So to flip classroom, it's out of class activities. So it's teacher-centered, lecture method, and computerized. So for effectivity, to high and moderate to low performing students, no? So that's the direction of blended learning to flipped classroom. So in traditional model, before class, there is no preparation given to the students. But in flipped classroom, students do reading or watch lecture prior to the class. So during class test time, in traditional model, students watch lecture given by the professor. For flipped classroom, there is a range of activities, discussions, or quizzes led by professor, but centered on students to consolidate understanding. Then after class, students consolidate understanding for traditional model, but for flipped classroom, students further consolidate understanding and prepare for next class. Can you imagine? So how important is flipped classroom for the development of the 21st century skills of the learners? All right, so I guess I have to skip this slide on the old school and the new school. We have already discussed so much about that. Now we proceed now with the workshop and demo teaching. So if you have questions and comments, you can leave that in the chat box, and then we can answer you, or you can email your comments and questions, and then we will reply to you. So PCPD staff will provide the email address, no? Okay, so that your queries can be answered. So for our workshop and demo teaching, number one is make a lesson plan applying concepts learned on flexible learning, specifically focus on flipped or blended learning. And then be ready for a demo teaching and submit the lesson plan made. So if it's possible, PCPD will require you to submit a recorded video so that we can critique your output, we can give comments, and that's part of the requirement so that you can get also your certificate. All right. So I guess we are done with that session, and we will wait for your outputs. Thank you so much, and a pleasant day, everyone.